More than 3 hours discussing Iran, Gaza, and the next phase of regional diplomacy. The talks come as the U.S. sends a second aircraft carrier to the region to use if talks fail and a military strike is ordered. ILTV's India Naftali has been following developments.
Yes, Steve. The meeting was closed to the press and longer than expected, but both sides are now signaling where things stand and where they could be heading next.
This was the 7th meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump since Trump returned to office. The talks lasted 3 hours, 2 hours longer than originally planned. The talks focused on two major fronts: Iran's nuclear and missile programs and the ongoing situation in Gaza. After the meeting, President Trump confirmed that no final decisions were reached on Iran, but said he made clear that negotiations must continue. On Truth Social, Trump said, quote, "It was a very good meeting. The tremendous relationship between our two countries continues. There was nothing definitive reached other than I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated." Trump also said that if a deal is not reached, the United States will consider other options, a warning that comes as American military assets continue to move into the Middle East. During the meeting, Netanyahu presented new intelligence on Iran's military buildup, including developments in its ballistic missile program. Israeli officials say the prime minister stressed that any future agreements with Iran must address not only the nuclear issue, but also missile capabilities that pose direct threat to Israel. The two leaders also discussed the situation in Gaza, with Trump saying tremendous progress is being made, both in Gaza and across the region.
A lot was discussed in yesterday's meeting. What we've reported is what's publicly known, but the length of those talks suggests that much deeper discussions were happening behind closed doors. For now, it appears negotiations between Iran and the U.S. will continue. Back to you, Steve.
The Ayatollah's regime in Iran has marked the 47th anniversary of its 1979 Islamic Revolution with a mass anti-U.S. march and fiery rhetoric, with officials in Tehran declaring that the Islamic Republic's missile program is a red line that will not be negotiated.
The defiant message came as tens of thousands gathered in Azadi Square, waving Iranian and Palestinian flags and chanting "Death to America" and "Death to Israel." Ali Shamkhani, a senior advisor to Khamenei, said Iran's missile capabilities are, quote, non-negotiable, rejecting current U.S. demands to expand nuclear talks to include Tehran's ballistic missile program. The anniversary events come amid renewed nuclear negotiations with the United States, and as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was meeting President Donald Trump in Washington, pushing for a tougher line against Tehran. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian told the crowd Iran would not yield to what he called excessive demands from Washington, but claimed Tehran is not seeking nuclear weapons and is ready for verification. That claim, despite the fact that the UN's nuclear watchdog has been unable for months to fully inspect Iran's stockpile.
ما به دنبال سلاح هسته‌ای نیستیم. ما بارها و بارها این رو اعلام کردیم و آماده هر گونه راستی آزمایی هستیم. من به عنوان مسئول دولت به خاطر نارسایی هایی که وجود داره از ملت شریف عذرخواهی میکنم. از نارسایی ها و کمبودها ما در دولت با تمام وجود داریم تلاش میکنیم که همه این مشکلات رو با قدرت و با صلابت بتونیم حل کنیم و به حول قوه الهی و با رهبریت داهیانه مقام معظم رهبری این کار رو خواهیم کرد.
The Iranian president continued the propaganda about the deadly government crackdown on protesters, claiming outside agitation.
همین آمریکا و کشورهای اروپایی تلاش کردند که انقلاب ما رو زمینگیر کنند. دیوار بلند بی‌اعتمادی رو که آمریکا و اروپا در قبال اون حرف‌هایی که میزنند ایجاد کردند اجازه نمیده که این گفتگوها به نتیجه برسه.
As Iran celebrates its revolution, the regime faces a U.S. military threat and growing dissent at home. But even as the regime projected strength, signs of internal strain were still visible. Protesters were heard overnight chanting "Death to Khamenei" and "Death to the dictator" from apartment balconies, a rare public display of defiance following the deadly crackdowns of last month. From their balconies, millions of Iranians are wondering if and when the United States will deliver on President Trump's promise that help is on the way.
And joining us now from Washington is veteran Israeli journalist Ariel Kahana. Thanks so much for being with us.
Hi, Steve. Good to be with you.
Unlike previous meetings, there was no photo op or press conference this time at the White House where Trump and Netanyahu could be asked questions. Nevertheless, what have you managed to learn?
Correct. Yes, it was a very low profile, Steve, in this visit, the seventh meeting just on this term of President Trump. And as you said, we had no opportunity to ask questions, to talk to the president or to the prime minister. And the prime minister, by the way, made no interviews to the media here in America, what he is doing when he is coming to Washington, at least in the right-wing leaning media. We saw nothing of all that. Now, what I get from that, my understanding, but also, let's say, hints, is that it's on purpose. And there are a few reasons why the profile is low by both sides. When it comes to Israel, I think Netanyahu doesn't want to be seen as the one who is leading what could be the next war with Iran. We all know, as Trump is saying, there is an armada on way. So it seems that the United States is gonna lead the next round against Iran if we're really gonna see it. So I think Netanyahu doesn't want it to be seen as if Israel is pushing or leading a war that the United States is gonna handle. So that's one reason for the low profile by Israel. From Trump is it seems, again, that's the hints I get. There are more preparations that should be done. Of course, we see the pressures coming from the other side. I mean, like Turkey and Qatar and others, not to on Trump, not to act against Iran. So maybe Trump is, trying to figure out his way on this conflict. So all in all, at this point, he prefers to low profile and not to talk about it too much. So that's my understanding why we didn't see him talking to us, the reporters here.
Well, Ariel, Trump says the one thing he did say after the meeting is that he's determined to pursue a deal. And the noise out of Tehran says that talks on ballistic missiles are a non-starter. Are there any indications from the U.S. that they can get Iran to even discuss the missiles or anything, the proxies?
Well, we saw the unpredicted in many cases, so, I can't say it's 0%. But in my humble opinion, it's no more than 1% to see any kind of a deal between Trump and Iran. First of all, as you said, the Iranians are not ready to talk about other issues. And even if Trump will agree to talk just about the uranium, I mean, we were here, we were at this point a year ago, and there was no deal because the Iranians refused to give up on enriching uranium. So even in that field, there are zero chances, or I said 1% chance to have a deal. On top of that, as you said, they are not ready to talk about the missiles and about the other issues, which Trump loudly said just this week. He do want it to be part of a new deal. So the chances, again, in my opinion, to have a deal between the sides is very, very extremely low. Okay, and then the question is, if there is no deal, will there be a war? That's another question. I noticed the quotes by Senator Kennedy and Senator Lindsey Graham, who both met Trump the last days. Both of them said he is obligated, as he said publicly, to the Iranian people. And that means that at some point he will act. That's my understanding, again, from what is said by him and by others, including by some leaks of the record. So, again, in my humble opinion, it's not a question of if Trump will act, it's a question of when. Maybe it's going to be in days, maybe in weeks, maybe more. But bottom line, this problem, I mean, if Trump will stand to his word, and I guess he will, at some point he will have no other choice but to act.
The Iranian protesters certainly were shouting from their balconies yesterday against Khamenei. They were shouting for the U.S. They were waiting for that promised help that Trump promised. Is there any sign, whatever, that help is on the way for the Iranian people? aside from the missiles and the proxies and the nuclear, to bring down the regime?
So first of all, I think we have to say they are heroes. All those people who shouted from their balconies and from their homes, although the huge massacre they suffered from that brutal regime, each one of those people is a hero. Now, I think the question you raised is one of the reasons why we didn't see yet an American attack, and that is because it's not enough to hit the regime, and of course America can do that very strongly. The other point is whether we have an opposition, whether we have someone else that can replace this regime. I guess, I don't know, but I guess it's part of the preparations. I would say it makes sense. It should be part of the preparations for an American operation. But once again, Lindsey Graham and Senator Kennedy, both of them met Trump this week and said that his promise, help is on the way, is still relevant. It's still here. So I guess they know what they heard from Trump.
Ariel Kahana, thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you in the coming days.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and weeks. Yeah, thank you very much.
Israel has formally joined President Trump's Board of Peace Initiative. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made the move official yesterday in Washington. Visuals released after Netanyahu's meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio showed the Prime Minister signing Israel's accession to the board. Netanyahu later said on social media he had officially joined the initiative. The board was authorized by a UN Security Council resolution in November and is linked to Trump's Gaza ceasefire framework, which began in October. Under the plan, the board is expected to help oversee Gaza's temporary governance and support reconstruction efforts. Its first meeting is set for February 19th in Washington. Indonesian President Subianto has now announced that he will attend. Earlier this week, Indonesia's military chief said the country is preparing to send 5,000 to 8,000 troops to Gaza under Trump's peace plan. The initiative currently lacks a Palestinian presence. Some Middle Eastern allies have joined. Several major Western countries have held back. Netanyahu is heading back to Israel and has yet to announce whether he will return to Washington to attend the opening session. The fragile Gaza ceasefire has seen repeated violations and major disputes, including Hamas disarmament and future security arrangements remain unresolved. Israel has even prepared plans to return to war, to disarm Hamas by force. The Trump administration is working to prevent a new Israeli ground invasion of Gaza by showing enough progress on Hamas disarmament to delay or even block a return to full-scale war. The U.S. is also advancing a plan that would require Hamas to surrender heavy weapons, including rockets and RPGs, while temporarily allowing it to retain small arms. Crucial questions remain. Who would collect the weapons? Who would control them? And what would happen to Hamas's estimated 60,000 Kalashnikov rifles? Israeli defense sources remain highly skeptical that Hamas would give up small arms that underpin its internal power.
When you buy from Blessed by Israel, you're not just shopping, you're standing with the families of Israel's heartland. Every bottle of delicious olive oil, handcrafted necklace, or jar of honey carries the spirit of Judea and Samaria. These, along with many more products, are the tastes, scents, and stories of the Promised Land, made by people rebuilding our biblical homeland every day. Shop now at blessedbyisrael.com and use ILTV's special code BLESSISRAEL for 10% off on your first order.
Hundreds of Iranian cyber attacks targeting Israelis, including senior government and defense officials, academics, and journalists, were detected and foiled in recent months. This, according to the Shin Bet and Internal Security Service and the National Cyber Directorate. There's been a noted rise in attempts by Iranian intelligence agents to hack the private Google accounts of Israel since the 12-day war back in June 2025. Our correspondent Alec Pollard joins us now and has been following developments. What do we know?
Well, we're seeing this increase, yes, in the last few months, but really in the last year since the war with Iran, the 12-day war, according to the National Cyber Directorate, 26 1,000 cyber attacks against Israeli targets in 2025 alone. And now this has been an arena of warfare between Israel and Iran for many years, with Israel also conducting its cyber offensives to try to set back the Iranian nuclear program. And it's certainly a very lively arena. And the Iranians are using quite sophisticated methods here. We're talking about very personalized messages, tailor-made for the position that the person is in, if it's an academic, if it's somebody in the security apparatus, if it's a politician, trying to impersonate people that they know, trying to use mails that are supposedly come from institutions. A lot of sophisticated ways to try to get into the personal accounts of people of influence, high-ranking people, in order to use that information or in order to manipulate those people for the ends of the Iranians, and that poses a very serious threat to the Israeli national security.
I can only imagine. I mean, if you hack the highest-ranking officials, you can find all sorts of information. What steps is Israel taking to protect us?
Right. So Israel does have a very sophisticated cyber apparatus that's in play. Obviously, the usual things like using two-step verification and being careful, because it's also relevant to any person out there that could be manipulated in this way.
Individuals like us.
Yes.
Or ILTV, for example.
Yes, individuals. Obviously, the major target that they want to get is for the higher-ranking individuals, for whom now Google and WhatsApp actually have more severe and advanced verification and security measures that are given to certain people that you can have, and that's something that is being used by those personnel in those positions. So there are measures that can be used against, but it's a constant battle, and it requires people to be constantly on alert from these attempts by the Iranians, which are getting more sophisticated, and especially with AI nowadays that's in place, it's so much easier. There was a big story in the U.S. also where they were able to impersonate mails by Marco Rubio, you know, the Secretary of State, and you see a mail from a person. It's very, very sophisticated nowadays, the tech, and it means that the countermeasures need to be more sophisticated
We'll be following
as well.
developments. I mean, Israel's a cybersecurity expert. You would think that we'll develop defenses for ourselves in the near future.
It's a constant battle of one side ups the ante, gets more sophisticated, and then the defense gets more sophisticated in preventing them, and the dance is on all the time.
Thanks for that, Alec.
Yep.
At U Haifa International, academic excellence isn't just a standard, it's a way of life. With 21 English-taught master's programs, world-class faculty, and Israel's top national score in the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, students grow in every direction.
If you really want to challenge yourself academically, grow in a very diverse community, and be immersed in such an important and significant environment, University of Haifa is the place for you.
Located on the stunning Carmel Ridge, the U Haifa blends academic excellence with the welcoming community.
U Haifa International has a great combination of top-notch academics with a great community of students.
Whether you're pursuing a one-year master's or diving into research, U Haifa gives you the tools, mentorship, and real-life insight to make your mark on the world. U Haifa International. Master your mind, live your Israel experience.
Well, more than 20 wanted Palestinians were arrested overnight in a wide-ranging IDF anti-terror operation across Judea and Samaria. IDF forces completed a large-scale counter-terrorism raid along the seam line in the Menashe Brigade area, operating simultaneously in 12 villages over the past 24 hours. As part of the operation, Egoz commandos and additional security forces acting on Shin Bet intelligence arrested several suspects identified with Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. Forces also seized tens of thousands of shekels in terror funds and questioned dozens of suspects involved in terror activity, including individuals suspected of smuggling illegal Palestinian workers into Israel. In Barda, civil administration forces demolished 3 illegal structures and confiscated dozens of stolen vehicles. In additional overnight operations, 23 more wanted individuals were arrested. Forces seized a Kalashnikov rifle, M4 handguns, ammunition, and additional weapon parts. The IDF says operations will continue as part of the ongoing effort to proactively thwart terrorism in Judea and Samaria. Israeli President Isaac Herzog is wrapping up his Australia trip today. Speaking at a Jewish community event in Melbourne, Herzog parted with inspiring closing remarks. ILTV's Devil Klein has the story.
President Isaac Herzog summed up his solidarity trip to Australia last night as he is due to head back to Jerusalem today. These were his closing words to the Jewish community of Australia.
We came to salute the many heroes of Bondi and to reinvigorate the relations between Australia and Israel. I can now say that while we came to give strength, chizuk, to all of you, we leave more strengthened than before. We came to offer inspiration, and we depart for Jerusalem inspired and energized.
The Jewish community accepted Herzog with open arms, welcoming him into the community during times of mourning following the Bondi Beach terror attack that plagued the community. But outside, in sharp contrast, was this: death threats to the Israeli president, as pro-Palestinian demonstrators protested the visit of Herzog, claiming he is somehow complicit in the deaths of Palestinians.
So God forbid, I never incited genocide. It's a libelous lie. And that's part of the whole circumstances of our lives, meaning enormous brainwashing with a lot of lies and blasphemy, which has no basis. We were attacked by the most barbaric and vicious terror organization on October 7th, 2023.
Herzog added that the anti-Semitism in Australia is frightening, but that there is a silent majority and they do wish for peace. For more than 200 years, when Israel's most vulnerable needed help, Kolel Chabad was there. When families can't afford food, when seniors are alone, when children are struggling to survive, Kolel Chabad steps in with meals, essentials, and dignity. Right now, thousands of families across Israel are counting on that help, and you can make sure it reaches them. Your donation doesn't just give charity, it gives hope, it gives strength, it saves lives. Kolel Chabad, helping Israel one life at a time. Scan the QR code on your screen and give now.
Let's take a look at the weather. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump held a high-stakes meeting at the White House, spending more than 3 hours discussing Iran, Gaza, and the next phase of regional diplomacy. The talks come as the U.S. sends a second aircraft carrier to the region to use if talks fail and a military strike is ordered. ILTV's India Naftali has been following developments.
Yes, Steve. The meeting was closed to the press and longer than expected, but both sides are now signaling where things stand and where they could be heading next.
This was the 7th meeting between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Donald Trump since Trump returned to office. The talks lasted 3 hours, 2 hours longer than originally planned. The talks focused on two major fronts: Iran's nuclear and missile programs and the ongoing situation in Gaza. After the meeting, President Trump confirmed that no final decisions were reached on Iran, but said he made clear that negotiations must continue. On Truth Social, Trump said, quote, "It was a very good meeting. The tremendous relationship between our two countries continues. There was nothing definitive reached other than I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated." Trump also said that if a deal is not reached,